All right, well, thank you all so much for coming today for another one of our S5 Social Studies Summer Seminar Series. And today I am very pleased to have with us Nicole Barbieri from EverFi, and she is going to be talking to you guys about how to incorporate economics and personal finance standards into your classrooms using some of the great products that EverFi has as an option for you. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn the time over to her. And I will come back on at the end to mark your attendance. So if you haven't yet, put your first and last name into the chat. And again, I will have you do that at the end of the session. So that way I can judge that you were here for the entire time. So thank you so much. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Nicole.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone, for putting your information in the chat. That's super helpful to make sure that I can be as targeted as possible in my information for you all today. So our agenda for today is up on the screen. Our goal here is really for you to walk away 100% fully set up and ready to implement a financial literacy lesson on the first day of school if you choose to. So that's our goal for today. The way we are going to achieve that is by telling you a little bit about myself and about EverFi, the company that I work for. We're going to do an overview of resources that are standards aligned to our econ personal finance standards here in Arizona. We'll go over some implementation best practices that I've seen from teachers in Arizona who have taught me how to best implement our resources. And then I will get through those three things as quickly as I can so that you can really get to the fun part, which is getting yourselves an account, getting your feet wet, working through, checking out these lessons and figuring out if and when you would like to implement these lessons. I have a few different slides as we go through for questions, but if you do have questions, feel free to throw them into the chat. I will do my best to answer them in real time, and if not, we'll get to them when you all are working independently. So if you have questions, definitely let me know. That's me. I'm Nicole. I live here in Phoenix and I work for EverFi. I was a teacher prior to my time at EverFi. I taught for about 5 years and I've been at EverFi for about 5 years now. So if you forget everything else that I tell you today, it's really that you have my support here in Arizona. If you have questions, if you're not great with technology, if you want support for your teaching team, really whatever I can do to help you, I am here to do that. So my contact information is on the screen. I'm also going to drop a link in the chat so that you can schedule a video meeting with me directly if you have a question or want some input on your specific classroom, grade level, amount of time that you have. Really, I'm here to consult with you and support you as you get your students this financial literacy information. A little bit about EverFi as a company. We started many years ago, about 15 years ago, with high school financial literacy. That is where the heart of our company lies. We are an education technology company, so the mission was really to get some digital lessons into the hands of students who maybe were not hearing about financial literacy, savings, budgeting, credit, all of those things at home or maybe even at school. We have clearly moved into quite a few other areas from there. We know that we're not the experts in STEM and financial literacy and SEL. So what we do is we get some really smart people to help us build out these supplemental digital lessons that you can share with your students in the classroom. So the folks who are doing the research, working in the trenches, educators from around the country have helped us build out these lessons that you can use supplementally along with your existing curriculum. So nothing to take over what you're already doing. As you can see, our EverFi Financial Literacy course for high school is 7 30-minute lessons. So if you wanted to only use one of those, that's fine. If you want to use all 7, that's fine too. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. The best thing about EverFi is that we are absolutely no cost for you all. Our mission is to work with corporate partners, both nationally and locally, to fund every resource that we create so that you all don't have to pay for it. So we've got some wonderful local partners here in the Cardinals, the Coyotes, Comerica Bank. All of these folks have pre-funded these resources for you. So you could use every EverFi lesson with every student on your campus every year, and it would never ever cost you a dime. Along with those resources that you're getting at no cost, you're getting my support. So absolutely everything you see from EverFi is available to you at no cost. It's already fully funded for you. All right. Why teach financial literacy? So you all are here on your summer break. The storm has passed. It's sunny outside. You could be at the pool, going for a bike ride, doing whatever you wanted to be doing, but you're choosing to be here on your summer break. So first of all, thank you very much for spending your time with me. But I also want to make sure that this is as meaningful as possible for you all while you're here. So in a moment, I am going to share a menti.com poll for you so that we can build a word cloud together and really set our intention for the next hour and 20 minutes that we have together. So it's going to be menti.com. You can go on your phone really easily, or you can open up another, if you have another screen, you can open it up. And the 2 questions we are going to answer on menti.com is, first of all, just a 1 through 4. How comfortable are you teaching about financial literacy? And then the second question here is, what is your why for making time for financial capability lessons for your students? So 1 through 4, how comfortable are you? And really just, why are you here? Why do you think financial literacy is important for your students? So the code is on the screen. Like I said, you're just going to go to menti.com, enter this code, and then in the top line, just drop a 1, 2, 3, 4. How comfortable are you teaching Finlit? It's anonymous, so you can be honest. And then what's your why? Why do you think that financial literacy lessons are important for your students? So I'll give you a few minutes to reflect and answer that question, and we will build our word cloud here together. All right, so life skills coming up front and center here. Of course, our students are always asking us for adulting lessons, right? So what could be more adulting than financial literacy, income, savings, direct deposit, all of these things that are skills that all of our students are going to need to learn. Student loans, always a big one. We're going to talk about that a little bit today. Student loans are so confusing, and really students see it as a barrier to entry for higher education. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. Budgeting, absolutely. Understanding that there is a certain amount of money coming in, and if you spend more than that, then you're going to get yourself in trouble, right? So giving them some really practical budgeting skills. Accountability, I love that one too. We want our students to understand that the decisions that they make might have a certain reaction, right? So we want them to know that they're accountable for their own financial future. Be smart with money, prepared for the real world. Credit card usage, yeah, absolutely. I didn't understand credit until I was well beyond having my own credit card, maybe 2. So it's so important to get this information to our students before they are handed one of those credit card applications. Avoiding poverty, absolutely. There's some very real world application to managing your finances appropriately. independence, organization, confidence. I love all of this. So thank you so much for participating in the Mentee. This is a wonderful thing for us to be able to set our intention for our time here together and make sure that we maximize the rest of this time that we have. I will send everybody the slides in follow-up here, and I'll make sure to put this word bubble we've created in those slides so that you can refer back to it. I think this is really cool for your students to be able to see also. I think a lot of the time in the classroom, our least favorite question is, why do we need to learn this, right? So here's the answer. We have created the answer here today if your students are having these questions. So a good motivator for your students. All right, so you have shared your why with me. Thank you so much. I want to share our why at EverFi. Why do we care about financial literacy? Why is that where our company started? One of the ways in which we frame all of our resources is through SAMHSA's 8 dimensions of wellness. If you're not familiar with this, I would highly recommend taking 3 minutes to go to the website and check it out. It's really interesting to me, just personally as a human, but also when I'm thinking about my work with students in the classroom when there's not a pandemic. All of these different dimensions are making up a whole well, happy human or a whole well, happy student. So I think a lot of the times we get bogged down in, oh, I don't take care of myself. I don't go to the gym. I should go to the gym more. Well, physical is only one of these 8 dimensions. Maybe you are really good at your social component, or you're really good at your occupational component. So there's actually a quiz online that will, ask you some questions about each of these areas. If you have high school students, I think it's something really cool for your high school students to be able to go through and reflect themselves. And I think it's really good for you all to be able to pat yourselves on the back. I'm sure sometimes you wish you could help with student wellness more than you can, but you just have so many standards and things that you need to get to. Well, financial is one of these 8 dimensions. So pat yourself on the back. You are supporting students with wellness just by being a teacher who is making time for financial education. So that's samhsa.gov. Highly recommend going through that quiz, but this is one of the reasons that it's important to us at EverFi. The next one here is just our problem set. If you're a data person, this is the slide for you. So we know that 4 in 10 US consumers reported that they had trouble paying at least one bill or expense in the last year. And we know that this is really a symptom of people not having a savings plan, maybe not having a savings account. So our goal for our students is to hope that they don't have to take on that stress of being stressed out by having an unexpected medical bill or car bill or whatever it may be. We also know that only 36% of non-retired adults describe themselves as on track for retirement, and 25% have no retirement savings or pensions at all. I know that retirement, 401ks, that whole world was so confusing to me. I didn't start putting money into my 401k until way too late in life. My husband was not pleased to find that out about me when we were dating. So again, giving students this information early on, obviously it's too early for them to maybe be opening a credit card or putting money into retirement, but just putting that information in the back of their minds is such a good step in helping our students, because we know that the financial habits that we are helping them to see, give them insight into, give them a perspective, give them the tools and the knowledge about financial literacy. If we do that now, it's going to inform those bigger financial decisions in the future and make them, again, a more happy, whole human and also a happier community for us to live in. And finally, why teach financial literacy? It's part of your standards. So this is really right from the ADE website. We want our students to have the concepts and the tools necessary to make reasoned judgments. We want them to be able to ask questions about their own personal finance, about the economics of our country. We want them to understand how individuals and businesses and governments all work together to make the economy work, to make the financial marketplace work. We also know that understanding economics is really important as we're talking about many current events, current issues, public policies that are being put in place. So giving this economic and financial literacy information to our students is really going to help them in all of their social studies classes. And we have really taken the guesswork out of that for you here at EverFi. So our resources, every resource I talk about today is going to be aligned to your standards. We're going to talk about, I think, 5 different resources that you can use. And I have the standards alignment available to you if you would like to have it. So our resources are standards aligned to high school econ for the state of Arizona, but we also have quite a few different district specific scope and sequence alignments that we've done. So the district has shared, many districts have shared with us the scope and sequence that you all are following. And we then go in and input our resources. So you know exactly when you would be using your EverFi resources. So you can see here that we've got the EverFi resource, which is our flagship. So it's called EverFi. So EverFi Financial Literacy lessons 3, 5, and 7 are all going to align to this district's unit 2. So that way it really takes the guesswork out of it. You know exactly where to place these resources and the topics that are going to be addressed. We have this for many districts already, but if there's somebody at your district office that you'd like me to work with to get this created for your district, I would be more than happy. It's a pretty quick process for me. I've been doing this for 5 years, so I know the resources like the back of my hand. Saves you all a little bit of planning time. So I'll give you my contact information later on if you'd like me to support your district with that. All right. So as you saw on that large chart that I shared earlier, we have quite a few different areas, quite a few different grade levels that we cover with our resources, but all 30 of them with hundreds of lessons within those 30 are going to have all of these things in common. So no matter your grade level or your content area, every EverFi resource has data. So these are going to be, like I said, supplemental lessons that your students are going to go through. They're digital, so your students are each going to be on their own computer with their headphones in, working through the scenarios, reflecting on the material, playing games sometimes. But each of those lessons that are between 5 and 30 minutes each, just depending on the resource, they have a pre-assessment of 5 questions and a post-assessment of 10 questions. And those questions are automatically graded for you, so very low lift on your part, and they're going to be uploaded into your teacher account under reports. So you're able to monitor student progress really easily. So the lift is very low for you. It takes students about 5 minutes to register and log into an EverFi account. Then they're working quietly and independently, and you're able to monitor their progress from your own account with no information input on your part. It's all going to auto-populate for you. You are also going to have access to lesson tools. So on a student dashboard, all they have are access to the digital lessons that you elect for them to have access to. I'm going to show you what that looks like in a moment. But you as an instructor, you have access to quite a bit more. So you have lesson plans that align to each of the digital lessons. If you love your Finlit lesson plans and you don't need any more, you're just looking for a digital lesson or two to spice things up, that's great. But if you are a new teacher or you are like, you know, I could really use some support with my credit lesson planning, you know, I feel like they didn't really stick last year, we have those lesson plans, those offline lesson plans that you can take a look at. We also have implementation guides, discussion guides, posters, activities, worksheets, all sorts of things to really boost up that blended learning experience. The discussion guides are incredibly useful, I think, for a multitude of reasons. Those take out the guesswork for you. So if you want to have bell work, that's a discussion question, you can pull it from there. Then students can go through the digital lesson, which is going to take them, you know, about 30 minutes. And then you can end your class time with a small group discussion or an exit ticket where they respond to another discussion question. So lots of options for those offline tools. And again, I'm happy to consult with you and give you some information on how I've seen those used in the past, so you can really maximize what you have available. The third one here is extension. We are not going to have time to talk about every EverFi resource today, but you do have access to everything in the catalog on your teacher account which I will let you know how to create in a moment. And then the final one here is scholarships. Who doesn't love a scholarship opportunity? So we do several different scholarship contests throughout the year. We are a national company, so it's a national scholarship contest. Students write a little blog post reaction to the resource that they went through, and then we do several drawings several times throughout the year where students will win usually $1,000 529 college savings scholarships. It's basically a gift card. They put it in their pocket, it earns interest, and then when they're ready to use it, whether they're in kindergarten or they're in 12th grade, whenever they're ready to use it next, they are going to be able to pull that out and use that towards their education. Any questions about EverFi in general before we move forward? And feel free to put it in the chat if you'd like. I'll just point out this stat while people may be typing. One thing we're really proud of is that 93% of teachers would recommend the course that they used this year to a fellow teacher. So obviously that would not be so high if they were not useful for teachers and engaging for students. So very, very happy to be able to report that one to you all. All right, I'm going to move forward, but if you have questions, let me know. So as I said, we do have financial education at every stage. This is the high school session right now. So I did see that we have one 8th grade teacher. If you are an 8th grade teacher, Future Smart is the resource that you want to be using. Jot down that name so that you have it. That's our middle school financial literacy resource where students become mayor of their town and they help their constituents make financial decisions. But what we're going to be focusing on here are the high school resources. We have 5 of them, and we're going to go ahead and do a deep dive into each one of those so you can really start to conceptualize what we have available and if and when you'd like to utilize these resources. But first things first, I want you to know what this actually looks like. So I'm going to show you what a student account looks like once your students register. Registration for high school students takes about 5 minutes, and once they are registered, this is what their screen is going to look like. They're going to have the amount of tiles here that you have elected for them to have. So if you only want them to have access to one EverFi resource, then they'll only have one tile. This is my personal student account. I have a few different tiles here. So it's really going to be up to you to choose what you want your students to be seeing. As you can probably already see, things are fairly self-explanatory here. When students log in, all they do is click Start, which is going to open up a resource homepage for them. If they are working on a Monday, they log out, they come back to class on Tuesday and log back in. The resource is going to have held their place for them. So as you can see, Marketplaces here says continue because I didn't quite finish the resource yet. I only got through one lesson. So they'll be able to log back in, click continue, and pick up right where they left off. But if I'm going to click start here on our high school financial literacy resource, this is the basics that we all wish we had learned in high school, and I know I didn't. When they click start, this is the resource homepage here. So they're able to select any one of these lessons. It tells them about how long the lesson is going to take. These are self-paced, so students are going to naturally take different amounts of time, but the lesson length is approximately up here. And it's going to tell them what their own progress on that lesson is as well. So they're going to pick the lesson and then they're going to click start, which will open up the module. This is when I start studying a bit because there is audio in my ear. So students are going to be able to listen to the lesson as well as read the words on the screen. And all of our financial education resources are available in both English and Spanish. So students have the option to toggle that language setting up here if they'd like to. So we're listening, we're getting a bit of an introduction, then we are taking this pre-assessment here. I'm just going to click through it for our purposes. And then students are going to be engaging in various activities here. So there's some personality assessments, there's a career assessment, there's some videos, a lot of different scenarios that they're going to be seeing. So that's just a sneak peek of what everything looks like from the student account so that you, when you're listening to what these resources entail, what lessons they are, you'll have an idea of what this looks like from the student perspective. All right, back to our slides here. Let's go through the resources. So the first one here is going to be Venture. This is an entrepreneurial expedition. This is one of our student favorites. And for that 8th grade teacher that's in here, this is something that you could use as well, since the grade level is going to be suggested for 7th through 10th. So students are building their own business. It's always a food truck, but they're making all sorts of different decisions, like balancing or building a balanced budget for their business. So we're looking at taxes, fixed versus variable expenses. We're doing some self-assessment here. So what does entrepreneurship mean to me? What are my personal diagnostics and my unique characteristics that would make me a good entrepreneur? We're going to plan and build our business, hire out our team, do the market research, who's the competition, and then ending with our business snapshot, where students can create a business pitch and maybe even do a little Shark Tank activity for you, do an extension where they can actually cook the food, bring it in, and pitch to sharks, which would maybe be your principal or whoever you wanted it to be. All right, our next resource that we're highlighting here is EverFi Financial Literacy. I'll pause here and say, if you're taking notes, this would be what you would want to be jotting down, because when you do create your EverFi account, you are going to have access to all 30 resources that we have available in our catalog. So makes things a little bit easier on you if you jot down what the name of the resource is, so you know exactly what you want to add when you get in there. So this resource is called EverFi. It's our flagship high school financial literacy resource. If I have any OG EverFi teachers in here, you will notice that this looks very different. It's gotten many facelifts since its inception many years ago. So this is going to be 7 lessons that are 30 minutes each. So again, if you only want to use one lesson, that is totally fine. If you want to use lesson 1, lesson 3, and lesson 7, that's okay too. It's really up to you how you'd like to implement these resources. I'm going to highlight just a couple of the lessons here for you. So the first one is banking basics. This is where students are really just understanding, what is a bank? What is a financial institution? We're introducing them to investing. We're helping them understand what the difference is between a savings account, a checking account, a CD account, and also just some good practical information about monitoring those accounts. Moving on to lesson 3, which is all about budgeting. So helping students to understand that you have a certain amount of money coming in, and if you have more than that going out, then you're going to go into debt. So really giving them that practical information of, why do I need a budget? How do I set up a budget? Also going over emergency expenses here. So again, helping students to hopefully not get into that situation where they're not able to pay off in a surprise bill that they might end up having. Lesson 5 is managing credit and debt. So all things credit, helping them to understand, what are credit cards? What do some of them have fees? How do I use this? Helping them to read a credit card statement, understanding what goes into a credit score. And then the last lesson we're going to highlight here is insurance. So risk management, car insurance, renter's insurance. I will also take this opportunity to tell you that we have an incredible new resource coming out in the fall that is all about helping our students understand health insurance, and it's written for high school students. So that's a great complement to this lesson if insurance is something that you're wanting to go over with your students. As I said, data is a part of what we offer. You have the pre and post assessment scores for your own students in your own teacher account, but we do put together an impact report for your district every year. So we're going to aggregate the average pre and post assessment scores for your students, every student in the district. So you can see that here on the bottom screenshot from the Arizona statewide impact report from last year. So we can see that students are averaging a 58% in the banking basics pre-assessment and a 59% in the budgeting pre-assessment. And then after students went through the lesson, they were in the 80s. So showing that there are some real true knowledge gains happening here. as well as some perspective shifts. So that top percentage, 76%, those are the students who feel or self-report as feeling more prepared to manage their financial lives after taking the EverFi resource. So this is the kind of information we're able to give back to you, but also showing that there are some real effective knowledge gains happening and perspective shifts happening as students are going through these financial literacy lessons. And this is just a little preview of those offline resources that I mentioned. So lesson plans, discussion guides that you can print or use whole class, small group, whatever it may be. The next resource I'm going to highlight here is Marketplaces, which is sometimes called MarketWorks. This one is significantly shorter. This is 5 lessons that are 10 to 20 minutes each. So this is really helping our students to understand a little bit about entrepreneurship, but also about investing and really just demystifying the marketplace for our students who maybe haven't heard about it at home or in school yet. So lesson 1 is marketplaces. Students are understanding really the history of financial markets, that they're super old, going into the global economy, and then just some news headlines that they can go through and see what the effect on different companies might be. Lesson 2 is the economy. So really how to measure economic health, looking at some business cycles and different economic policies and how that can affect things. Lesson 3 is a great extension to that venture resource that we have that's about entrepreneurship, because this is where they're helping an entrepreneur take their startup IPO. So what does that mean? What is a venture capitalist? What is angel investing? Helping them to understand each step of this process and what's happening. And then lesson 4, keys to investing. This is where we give them some real investing advice, helping them to understand that if they want to invest, that that's an option for them. So we're going over stocks and bonds. We're going over diversification and why that's important, when you should be risky, when you should be less risky, all different tips to help them if that's something that they're interested in doing. And then finally, the investment game, which is really just a fun culmination of all the information that they've learned. All right, moving on to Money Moves. We have an amazing local sponsor here in Arizona, which is Zelle. So this is all about just some really amazing concrete information for students who are managing their banking. So we know that most students who are working are having a direct deposit into their bank account, giving them some information about, you know, you're working really hard to make this money. How do we make sure to keep it safe and manage our online banking so that we don't fall victim to the fraud and identity theft that has come along rampantly with the, you know, wonderful things that we have, which is that we can bank on our phone. So again, all of these resources are aligned to our state standards. The lesson structure here, which is similar to all of our resources: pre-assessment, introduction to new learning. So working them through some problem solving, they do an activity, and then they have some next steps that they can actually apply in their real life before they go through the post-assessment. Lesson 1 here is introductory financial concepts. So checking and savings accounts, compound interest, really just the basics. We move on to modern banking, so helping them understand how to use their banking apps. We have identity theft and fraud protection. So again, these are quick 10-minute lessons helping them to identify scams and make sure that they're not falling victim to that. And then if they are using things like Venmo or Zelle or whatever it is that they're using to send and receive money from friends and family members, just again, giving them some really practical information to make sure that they are using these responsibly. All right, the final resource I'm going to highlight here before we start talking about implementation and then getting you your own account is Pathways. This is all about helping our students understand, one, the return on investment of college. I think a lot of our students here in even elementary and middle school that college maybe is not an option for them for various reasons. And this is really just helping them to understand that if they want to go to college, there are pathways for them. So first of all, is college worth it? What's the return on investment? What are the pros and cons? Next, we're helping them understand financial aid. So emphasizing the FAFSA, helping them understand the difference between scholarships and grants and loans. We're going over student loan basics, budgeting for those loans, and then finally, how to make sure that if you take on those loans that you can repay them responsibly. And then, as I said, just a sneak peek here, we are adding a lesson to our flagship resource, EverFi Financial Literacy, adding some more tax information there for them. They actually get to mock fill out a tax form in that resource, which is, I think, maybe my favorite part of every one of our resources, because paperwork is the most stressful part of adulthood, in my own personal opinion. So they get to actually mock fill out that FAFSA form or that tax form and learn how to do that. So they have a little bit more confidence when they go in and have like someone from HR sitting across the table from them, waiting for them to fill that out. We also have a data science foundations course coming out, which is all very over my head, but I think high school students these days are much smarter than I am. And then our healthcare literacy course as well. All right, I did a lot of talking. It looks like the chat is radio silent here, so I'm going to pause for a moment. Does anyone have questions about the resources that I talked about or how EverFi works before we talk through some implementation best practices and then actually get you playing in your account? All right. I'm doing such a good job that nobody has questions. That's how I'm going to take that. All right, so your next steps for implementation are, first of all, just to get your account, play through, check out the curriculum guides, and see what it is that you might want to use in your classroom. The next step is just determining how and when you want to implement those lessons. Is it right away? Is it at the end of the semester? Is it not even until second semester? When and how do you want to implement these? Do you want to do it in class? Do you want to assign it as homework? All that good stuff. And then, of course, these are digital lessons, so you'll want to make sure that if your students aren't one-to-one with their technology, that you're reserving computers for them to be able to use, and headphones. There's crazy audio support in these lessons, so you'll want to make sure that they have headphones, mostly for your own sanity. It's a very zen, quiet class if students have headphones. It's very loud if they're all playing audio at different times. So many different implementation strategies here. It really depends on how you want to utilize these resources based on how comfortable you already are with financial literacy. If you said a 4 at the beginning, you're like, I've taught FinLit forever, I'm comfortable with it, I maybe only need another lesson or 2, that's totally fine. Maybe you implement that lesson as an introduction to material, or you do it as a way to quiz your students at the end of your unit, since there are those automatically graded assessments there for you. So intro, review, always great options. Guided or independent practice is wonderful, deciding if you want to assign it as homework or extra credit, since these lessons can be implemented in the classroom, but students can access them from any computer with internet, so they can do these at home as well. And then flipped classroom, of course, is one of the most popular and probably the most popular during the pandemic. So lots of different options for how you might want to implement. I also realized that we talked about a lot of different resources today, and every one of them is going to be standards aligned for you if you teach financial algebra or econ or really any financial literacy subject. CTE, professional standards, those are all in here. So if you want to use all of them, but you know you don't have time to use the full resource for all of them, my suggestion here, and obviously take day 1 lately, it might be day 1, day 40, day 60, day 90, or whatever it may be. But I would suggest starting with EverFi financial literacy, just because that is the basics. Moving on to those practical skills with money moves, then going to maybe entrepreneurship, talking about venture or investing, talking about marketplaces, and then going on to achieving goals with pathways or venture. So just a suggestion, you obviously can use one lesson of each, or you can use the entire, all the lessons in each of these resources. It's really up to you how much you have time for. But again, I'm here for you. I'm happy to consult if you have, you're like, I teach econ. When does this fit? I have only 2 days for extra material. I'm happy to give you some advice on what I've seen so that you can make the best decision for your students. We also have a ton of really cool ways that teachers have implemented our resources. I think for Finlet, you can't ignore extra credit score. So a lot of the time teachers will get their students registered for EverFi like the first week of class. And then they say, you have this, your extra credit score is going to be raised. You can get a perfect 850 if you finish all of these lessons by the end of the quarter or the end of the semester. So I love that idea. Doesn't take any of your class time. Teachers can do it on their own. Also, Ever Fridays is one of my favorites. So students know on Friday when they get to class, they sit down, they open their computer, they log into EverFi, and they pick up where they left off. The resources, as I said, do keep their place, so that is an option. And then if you only have 1 or 2 days, I think the finance coach training is a great option. You can break students into small groups. Each student goes through a different lesson, or each group of students goes through a different lesson. And then the next day they have 5 minutes to present to the class. What did you learn in the EverFi lesson that you went through? What should your peers know? If anybody on the line here has used EverFi before, I'd love to know, big or small, how you implemented them, when you implemented them. You all learn so much better from each other than you do from me, obviously. So if anybody has any input, that would be fantastic.
Nicole, there was
Danielle?
one. Oh yeah, I was just going to ask Danielle's question about the iPad. Sorry.
Yeah, so our older courses do not work on iPads, but our newer ones do. And you're in luck because these are our newer courses. So yes, they're going to work on iPads. I saw employment applications too. Yeah, there's a lesson on in our EverFi financial literacy course that I didn't highlight, but it's all about understanding careers and doing some pro cons. So for example, if they're thinking about driving for a ride share company, what are the pros of that? What are the cons? So I think this is great for prepping for any applications or mock interviews, things like that. There's a lot of good stuff here. Trish, when will the Data Science Foundations course be available? That is a fantastic question. So I just got to see it for the first time yesterday. So I think they're probably going to be working through some bugs here, I would say around September 1st. But if you sign up for an account, we will make sure to give you access to that when it's ready. They always say fall, and then they kind of forget that we start very early here in Arizona since we're a national company. So we'll see. Any other questions? All right. So what I would like to do now is really just show you what an EverFi account looks like on your end as the teacher. What I'm going to do is just give you a little bit of a tutorial here, and then I'm going to show you how to create your own account. And then I'm going to give you some independent work time so that, again, you can really maximize this time here together and decide when, if, how you'd like to implement these lessons. So I'm going to show you in a second how to create an account, but stay with me for just another couple minutes so I can show you what you're going to have available to you. When you register for an account, it's going to look something like this. The very first thing that you want to do is go to this catalog tab. Catalog is just our general EverFi catalog. It's sectioned off, and lucky for you all, financial education is at the very top. So you just want to use these arrows to add the resources that we talked about today. So just as a recap, if you're taking notes and want to jot down exactly what to add to your homepage here. If you teach high school, the first resource you definitely want is just called EverFi. It's our flagship high school financial literacy resource. Then we have Money Moves, Marketplaces, Pathways, and Venture. Those are the resources we talked about today. And then for our 8th grade teacher, Future Smart and Venture. So what you're going to do is go through, click this green add button. And what that's going to do is move the resource from just our general catalog tab over to our home screen. From your home screen, once you've added those resources, that's when you have the opportunity to take a look and really research and explore these lessons to figure out if and when you want to use them. So I'm on the Money Moves tile right now. Obviously, I have many of them. What I'm going to do is use this resources button. And once I let you register and work independently, this is going to be where you're going to spend the majority of your time here. So from resources, I have all sorts of things. I have the lesson plans to take a look at, the discussion guide to see what that's all about. If there's worksheets or activities, you're going to have those as well. Some of them have posters, all sorts of good stuff. But where you'll really want to spend your time is the curriculum guide. Every EverFi resource has its own curriculum guide. It's going to open up in another tab, so you'll still have your account here. And this is going to answer pretty much every question that you might have about a given resource. So how long does it take? It's 4 modules, approximately 20 minutes each. What is the recommended grade level? If you have 10th graders, but it says 11th through 12th, and you review it and decide you think your 10th graders would like it, go ahead and implement it with your 10th graders. You know your students better than we do. You have an overview, topic areas, course structure, learning objectives, and then you're going to get some information about each individual lesson. So module or lesson 1 of Money Moves is introductory financial concepts. We have the learning objectives here written out, and then the activity topic and the activity description. So you're going to be able to read through these and see exactly what it is that your students are going to be working through. So again, that is the resources button and then the curriculum guide. That's where you'll want to spend most of your time here when you get your account. There's also this view course button. I'm going to be very transparent with you that sometimes the functionality is a little glitchy. The functionality of this view course button is different than the functionality for our student accounts. So never fear if it doesn't work for you. That does not mean it's not going to work for your students. But when you click view course, it'll open up what the digital course actually looks like so that you can play through the lessons. So that's view course, but again, that resources button, curriculum guide, that's where you're going to want to spend your most time, your most effective use of time in reviewing these resources. And then just to give you an idea of how things will go once your students are quietly working on their computers with their headphones in, the way that you'll monitor their progress is from this reports button. So from the report dropdown, I'm going to choose marketplaces, and we can see that I have 1 student who has gotten started. Taylor has a 100% on the first lesson, which is marketplaces. If Taylor kept going, the grades are going to auto-populate here for me. So 70% and above is going to be green, 60% and below will be red. Every one of your students who registers is going to auto-populate down here. So you don't have to manually input anyone's name, and you don't have to manually input anyone's grade. That's all going to auto-populate. You can also see in the report here that there is a certified section. It says no because I'm not done. But if I had passed every lesson here with a 70% or above, this no is going to change to a yes. So this is another way that a lot of teachers will monitor progress in EverFi. They'll never even go to their report. They'll say, you need to get certified in this by the end of the quarter. And the way you're going to prove that to me is that they'll have a certificate button here underneath progress if they get certified. So they're able to access that, email it to you in a PDF, print it off, whatever you'd like. Obviously, another great thing for your classroom if you want to print off these certificates, and it's something that students can put in their job folders as well. We work really closely with Phoenix Union, but a lot of districts, in addition to them, will use these certificates in their career folders and their job interview folders. So if students are working on resumes or bringing that to a job interview or a college interview, this is just another thing that they can put in that folder to show, I care about my future. I care about managing my finances, being responsible. Here's a certificate that I got in financial literacy or investing, whatever it may be. So that's the reports tab. You also have the option, if you have 8 class periods, obviously you don't want them all in one report. So I only have period 1 here, but if you had all 8 class periods set up, you'd be able to filter your report here. So it's only 1 class period at a time, which is great because you can save this report as a CSV that just downloads it as an Excel file so that if you want to upload these grades into your master gradebook, you're able to do that. All right, it's almost time for me to stop talking and for you to start exploring. Just to recap, I'm going to give you the instructions for registering for an account here in a minute. The first thing you want to do, I hate to sound like a broken record, the first thing you want to do is go to catalog. You can't do anything at all until you go to the catalog tab and click that green add button on those financial literacy or other resources that you want to take a look at. And then from your home screen, what we're going to spend our time doing for the next little bit is just really letting you maximize this time. Remember that our goal is for you to walk away fully set up to implement one of these lessons. And if you don't review them, you're not going to know which ones you want to implement and fulfill that goal we have for ourselves today. So go to this resources button, read those curriculum guides and start to think through which resources you'd like to use. And then once we're done poking around, exploring, I'll show you how to set up your classes and how to get your students started. So this is the fun part because of course, technology, there's always a little thing here and there. Most of you are going to be registering at our website, which is everfi.com/new teacher. That is where you'll register. You'll select your state. You'll start typing your school very slowly. It should come up from the drop down. If it doesn't, there's a button that says can't find my school. You can register under a generic school and I'll make sure to get you moved to the correct one. So pretty self-explanatory, registering there, everfi.com/new teacher. Some of you are going to have access to EverFi via Clever. If you recognize that Clever page, that EverFi app, you can go there and log in. Of course, the asterisk there is that many of your districts have kind of sunset the ability to log in over the summer. So if that's the case, you can send me a direct DM on the Zoom chat and we can find a way around that. So if you're having an issue registering or logging in, go ahead and send me, just click everyone in the chat and find my name and send me a DM and I can help you all individually. But for the most part, you should be going to the EverFi website, everfi.com/new teacher to set up your account. And then this is your free time to maximize this session. Go to the catalog, add those resources, go to the home page and read through those curriculum guides so you can really start to figure out how these are going to benefit you and your students. All right, go for it. So again, what you're going to want to do is go to catalog, add those resources with that green add button. That is going to be how those resources move from the catalog to your home screen, that green add button. And then when you're home, go ahead and click resources. That is where you're going to find the curriculum guide. I'm going to give you about 15 minutes to review. You have 5 resources to review. So take that time to do whatever you'd like in terms of reviewing, but that curriculum guide is going to be the best place. Each resource has its own curriculum guide. So go ahead and review that. And again, if you have a question, just go ahead and click direct message me in the Zoom chat so that I can help you individually. See you in about 15 minutes. Sound of my voice. Back to the Zoom here. Hopefully you were able to really maximize that time, review those curriculum guides, and figure out which of these resources are going to best benefit your students. I obviously think they're all wonderful. One of the things that you're able to do is just grant student access to all of these, and then just like I showed you earlier, what this is going to look like on their account is that they'll just have a tile for each resource. So if you think that maybe Pathways is fantastic, you're just not sure you're going to be able to get to it, my suggestion is just to give them access. And then if you decide I do have time, it's already there. If students maybe want to do the lessons for extra credit, it's already there. But you do have the ability to go back in and reset or add more resources for them later on if you decide you want to add more later. So it's totally up to you how you want to set up, but my suggestion is to just get it out of the way at the beginning of the year so then you don't have to worry about it. So my question is, oh, thank you. Always get excited when people have some positive feedback. I feel like I'm just talking into my computer sometimes. All right, so how do we get our students started? Obviously, that is one of the main questions that I will get. So my suggestion is that to come back to the Zoom here, watch for just a couple minutes, and then go through and I'll give you some time to set up your own classes. So what we're going to do is go to this classes tab. And you can see that I have already set up my classes here. So my period 5 class, they are going to have access to these specific resources I've selected for them. But you can see my period 2 class has access to a different resource and so on. So what you'll do is just set up a class for each period so that every single one of your students isn't on the same grade report because that would be a lot. And 2, maybe you have US history versus econ or whatever it may be that you want to use some different resources with. I will take this time to let you know, I know a few of you are signed up for my session tomorrow. It's going to be largely the same, so feel free to hop to a different session. The other 2 resources I will be going over tomorrow are 306, our African American history resource, and Bina, our Jewish history resource. So if you would like to just look at those independently and get your classes signed up, you can do that. It's not going to be a whole lot different other than giving a little bit more information on those 2 resources. So we are at our classes tab. We are going to click create class here. And what we're going to do is fill out this form. So period 6, econ, and then I'm going to select a start date. This is just general. If you say August and you get started in September, that's fine, and vice versa. These resources are free for you all, but they are not free. Someone is paying for them. The Cardinals, the Coyotes, First Credit Union, all of these folks have already paid for these resources. So by selecting a date, that really just helps me update your sponsors and make sure that these sponsorships can continue for your school to make sure these resources are taken advantage of. So we're going to select a general start date here, a class size, and then a grade level. And what we're going to do is click this add courses button. From here, we're going to go through and select the resources that we want to have. These tiles match the tiles on your home page. So for econ, I don't want the African American history resource, right? I want to have the econ resources. So that's going to be EverFi, marketplaces, money moves, pathways, and venture. So I've selected the ones that I want this specific class period to have. I'm going to click add, and then I'm going to click create. And if I clicked create, I'm not going to, I've done it a million times. If I clicked create, what it's going to do is add it to this list here under classes, and it's going to bring up a registration code. That's how your students are going to register, is with the registration code for their class period. So if your students were coming to class, the instructions would be open your computer and open Google Chrome. Go to everfi.com/register. All of this will be in an email, don't worry. Add the code I've given you for your specific class period. And then each individual student is going to create their username, create their password, and then they're in. That's it. It takes high school students significantly less than 5 minutes to go through that process. And then their screen looks like this. This is the student account. So they just pop on their headphones, they click start, and they work through the first lesson or whichever lesson you tell them to work through. So that's that process. Again, we are under classes, create class. We filled out that form. The one caveat is if you are a Clever enabled teacher, you'll have your class rosters from a dropdown. But since I didn't get any questions about that, I'm assuming none of you are Clever enabled. So we're going to go create class, fill out that form, which is going to populate a code. You don't have to write down the code. It's going to live here under your classes tab for you. You'll have a code for each class period. And then when students come to class, everfi.com/register, enter the code, create the username and password, and then they're in. Next time, if they want to log in the next day or the next month, they're just going to log into their EverFi account and pick up where they left off. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes here to set up your classes. If you have questions, again, go ahead and DM me in the chat. But we're going to classes and clicking create class to get those cohorts set up. This is the final piece of our goal here, which is to be fully set up, ready to implement these lessons on day 1 of class, if that's what you decide to do. So classes, create class. I'll be here to answer questions in the DMs. Come back to me. Hopefully you were able to set up at least one cohort so you understand how to do it. Like I said, if you are a US or world history teacher as well, our 306 resource is a great one to add for those students. And I am going to put my contact information in the chat and you'll get it in follow-up if you have questions about that resource specifically. Then since we didn't go over it today, if you'd like to go to a different session tomorrow instead of mine. So on the screen here, just a couple more things before we leave. I have many slides for all of the things that I showed you in real time. So how to go to the catalog, how to create classes, how to view the curriculum guides, that is all going to be in the slide deck I just showed you in real time instead of on the slides. So just know that they're there if you want to refer back to those when I send this in the follow-up email. We also have student registration instructions here. I have this on a 1-page PDF if you want that. I have it in a PowerPoint presentation. It really is very simple for high school students to register, but I can support you with that. But these are the instructions here on this slide that you'll have as well. You'll also have this slide that shows what the student dashboard looks like if you want to show this to your students ahead of time and then have them go in just so they know exactly what they're seeing. But again, once students register, very self-explanatory. They can really only do one thing, which is to click the start button. And then a few tech success tips. These go well beyond EverFi. These are pretty much true for any tech platform you're using. So first of all, the internet is not a superhero. If students are working at home, make sure that their brother stops playing the video games, their sister gets off TikTok, whatever it may be, to make sure that the internet can be strong for their education technology lessons. The second one here is that all browsers are not created equal. Our testing environment is Google Chrome. That's true for many tech companies. So try to use Google Chrome whenever possible. This warning is scarier than it is. It basically just means that we tested our resources on a screen that was this big, but the student screen is this big. Nothing's going to happen. All they need to do is click that do not show again and close. If students feel stuck in a lesson, it's usually because they really like to zoom like all the way in. So if they zoom out to an appropriate level, usually what they're missing is some sort of next button or next arrow that's in the bottom right-hand corner. And then if a student's video or page really isn't loading, this usually will happen to only 1 or 2 students in the class. And it's usually because of some sort of update or refresh that needs to happen. We should all be clearing our browser cache like weekly these days because we're on our computers so much. So make sure they clear that cache, make sure that their Chrome is updated, Flash is updated, everything like that. And then we do have a tech support document if all else fails. If you're even remotely tech savvy, you'll know what to do by reading that tech support document. If you have IT on staff, hand them that tech support document or email it to them. They'll know what to do in an instant. It's really not too hard. But also, I am here for you to answer questions if you need anything. Next steps, just as a recap, that classes tab is where you're going to set up your classes for the year, click create class, set up a code for each class period so that you have that nice clean list and students are only going to show up on the report with their classmates. And that is it. We have 3 minutes left. So does anyone have any questions or feedback on what they saw? Are there lessons that you're planning to use? I'm happy to hear any of that and also answer any questions in our last couple minutes here. High school teachers are usually a quiet group. You guys are like, we've been there, we've done that, we get it.
No, Nicole, thank you so much for another wonderful session. EverFi has got some really great resources that definitely, I think, will help our Arizona teachers implement the standards. And I love the idea of math teachers also being able to do something like Ever Friday and bringing in some personal finance standards. Anytime we can do anything across content, I think especially in high school, it just benefits our kids so much. So I wanted to definitely say thank you to you again. And thank you all for attending. Your attendance has actually been noted in our system. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording now.